Without further ado, Mr. Darryl Pike.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bill, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the invitation to attend. I was a little concerned, however, when I was asked to give this presentation, because I just read this article in the Sydney Morning Herald, and it was a survey done by the British Medical Institute on the attention spans of people who actually attend these sessions. The results were pretty interesting, because they maintained that only 10% of people who are here actually listen. A further 20% are physically here but mentally elsewhere. 20% are asleep, and the rest are engaged in sexual fantasy. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on you for the next 45 or 50 minutes. I did bring along a laser pointer, but I've been told that this is a reverse screen, so it won't work. So they gave me a stick. So we're really high tech, but it could work if we see some people who are asleep. I'd like to spend the next 45 minutes or an hour on one of my favourite subjects, which is really business planning. And that's where I've spent the last 25 or 30 years and been through the usual hoops of building a business, employing people, selling the business, finding a buyer, corporatising the business so that we could actually get it into the market and making profits along the way, and then being able to use those profits at a later date to actually enjoy yourself when you get to a point in life when you really don't want to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, apart from this morning, thanks Bill, and be able to use those profits at a later stage. So what I've done is I've termed this presentation "Turnover is Vanity and Profit is Sanity," because there are so many companies and so many people that I talk to, and if I ask them, did you have a good month last month? Yeah, it was a great month. What was great about it? Oh, we did such and such, which was a dollar amount in turnover that was 10% higher than what it was the year before. And that really is quite irrelevant. And then the question then is, well, how much did you make? Well, we don't quite know that yet, but if turnover is going up, then heck, we've got to be doing a pretty good job and we've got to be making money, and that is a huge mistake. And so I was asked today to incorporate into this presentation, and it will be a little rushed, but I want to cover a number of things so that you can actually go away and think about it. I was asked to cover this issue of margins and markup and gross profitability, net profitability, where you actually stand. Are you making money, or are you just buying yourself a job? So I think it's important to focus on some of those. Also, most of the information that I've got in this presentation we've got on notes, which you can pick up afterwards. I must excuse myself. I've had the flu for the last couple of weeks, and so if I start a coughing fit in the middle of it, that's the reason. I spoke at a conference last week, and I had to ask if everybody could hear me, and because of my voice situation. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, when I asked the question last week, someone stood up at the back and said, "Yes, I can hear you, but I'd gladly swap seats with someone who can't." So it didn't fill me with a lot of confidence. Okay, let's focus on where I reckon your focus in a small business should be. And really, it's not necessarily the destination, but it's not necessarily the journey rather, but it's on the destination. Where do you want to take this business? Where do you want to be in 2, 5, 10, 15 years? And what do you want to actually do with this business? I've used this slide because it was a shot taken in the 60s, and I had the great fortune in the 60s of getting a backpack on my back and leaving my job and travelling around the world for a couple of years without any money and just a pack. And this was one form of transport that was used in the Arctic Circle. And in those days, there were no skidoos, and you would think, well, why would you use this analogy here? Why would you look at this and say, what does this have to do with running my business? Running this dog sled team is exactly like running a business. These would be the most reliable workers that you would ever have. These little fellas here will run for 20 hours and they will carry 10 times their weight, and there's no politics here, and it's a team effort. And I think if you want to get to the other end, it's employing and getting the right sort of people. So to continue that analogy, if you're not the lead dog, then the view never changes. So if you're not the lead dog in your business, this is the view of your business that you're going to get forever and a day. Not real good, is it? You can't come from behind and win. And what I'd like to try and get across in today's presentation is that you actually focus on the business and not just working in the business. Not just going there every day thinking, I'll do this deal, I'll do that deal. Let's look at what we're actually getting out of it. So we're in front of the pack. We're not sitting back here. Very few people in business win from behind. If your competitors are out there and you haven't focused on the next step, then very few. There's only one person I know that's ever won from behind. And remember Stephen Bradley? He won from behind. And that was more luck than good management, I think, because he hasn't gone on to repeat it. Okay, 7 reasons. Let's turn the 7 reasons why businesses fail into a positive. Let's look at what they are. Focusing on turnover, and it's exactly the topic that Bill wanted to include in this presentation, focusing on turnover. And if that's what we do, then we are destined to fail. I do a lot of work with a lot of companies, small companies, large companies, and for the last 15 years I've done a lot of work with McDonald's, with their employees, franchisees, the franchisor part of the business, their investment side of the business, and it's a consulting thing that I've had on and off for the last 10 or 15 years. If there's one company in Australia that I know that focuses not on turnover but where their dollar is, it's McDonald's. They know every single morning at 10 o'clock the profitability of that company. They have software in play. Obviously they have systems in place. And they know exactly where their dollars are coming from. They know where they're making their money and they know where their profits are. And this is what we've got to do because all our businesses are quite different. You look at McDonald's and you think, gee, where do their profits come from? I mean, what's the most profitable item? You think McDonald's, you think Big Macs. Okay, Big Macs aren't the most profitable item. Their most profitable item are the thick shakes. Now, if you can sell something for $1 and it costs you 5 cents, it's not a bad sort of markup or margin, is it? The difference there. Unfortunately, they don't sell as many thick shakes as they do Big Macs. But where's their big profit come from? Can anyone tell me where they make their most money and the stability of their organisation, which enables them to carry through thick and thin? I'm sorry?
Exploiting people, teenagers.
Oh, well, that's another subject, isn't it? We can't get into can't go down that line. No, keep going. Where do they make their... No. I'll tell you, someone who said real estate. Yeah, okay. That's where they make their money. 55% of the net profit is out of rents. And if you see a McDonald's store sitting here on the corner of a street, you can rest assured that they own the property on the other corner and the other corner and the other corner, and they've rented it out as some other organisation just to keep their competition out. And they've done that time and time again. They own the real estate. So if you take that next step forward, and we'll talk about margins and markup, where are the profits? Where are your profits going to go? What's going to give you the easy life in the future, or an easier life? What's going to make it easier for you if it turns like it did for McDonald's? 140 consecutive quarters of growth McDonald's had. Then what happened? The wheels fell off because things changed. Diet changed. There's this emphasis now on healthy eating. Obesity, it's all changed. What enabled McDonald's to keep powering through is their enormous backup of profit coming from other areas, and they've changed direction in the business and they're back again. Regardless of what we think about McDonald's and the product, that's where they're at. And that's what I'd like to hope that you would go away with and start thinking about, what else can I do in my business to strengthen it up? So focusing on turnover, no business plan. I'd really like to talk about business planning today, and we don't have a lot of time. And I suppose the things I'm going to talk about here really are for a one-day session that I might do. But we'll get through it quickly and it might trigger some things going. No business plan. Working in and not on your business. How many people just go along every day and work in their business and not focusing on it? Poor financial management skills, neglecting the second business, and I'll talk briefly about what your second business is. No commitment and not taking advice. If you think the price of advice is expensive, try the price of not taking advice. And if it's one thing that I do now before I do anything, is I'll ask. I'll ask because the world situation, the economic situation, taxation, everything has changed dramatically. I was even speaking this morning to our next speaker here because we're doing a little project and we need someone to do some copywriting, and I'm thinking, why isn't this working? So I was asking the next speaker what we were doing wrong. And it's amazing how much money you save by asking and getting the right sort of advice. So let's push on. Markup and margin. What is the difference? Why is it important? How and when do you calculate it? And how does this really fit in and affect your business. I don't often read things, but just after Bill asked me to do this presentation, in fact, it was the next week, I think it was in June of this year, in the Financial Review, I was reading it, and it was a few days after Bill had phoned me up, and here's an article here, "Marginal is more than a word." And this, you probably could have saved me coming along here today by just distributing this article. But it's really interesting because it's on everybody's minds, margin markup. And I'd like to read just some of the points out of this. And I've actually got these points in notes for you afterwards. Margaret Butler checks the gross and net profit margins of her designer homeware business and Asia Trading Proprietary Limited every morning. It's a routine that has been key to the success of her business. She says that the retail market has been difficult in recent years as people want to buy at a discount, but she adds any company that gets caught up in discounting for discounting's sake is asking for trouble. It's better to hold margin than to just grow the top line. And you know what? We wouldn't still be around otherwise. She strives to achieve a gross profit margin of around 40% and a net profit margin of at least 10%. Otherwise, what's the point in running a business? Because you could make as much profit in real estate or the stock market or something else. As a bottom line, I don't like to work on less than a 10% margin, she says. In years where we can achieve higher gross margins than 40%, net margins of 15% plus are possible. The Sydney-based business retail turnover is about 20 million, so it's a reasonable sort of business. The accounting firm Grant Thornton says Butler's margin, or this person's margin management, is an absolute performance measurement that all businesses should apply. He says that many small to medium enterprises fall into the trap of assuming that the more they sell, the more profitable they will become. And that is a huge trap. The more you sell, the more profit you make. And that is wrong. Trying to grow a business by sacrificing margin is one of the most difficult and dangerous tactics to employ. And many business owners try to adopt a growth is good philosophy. Most work on sales and assume that profit growth will follow. As a general rule, Shrew advises a business to never enter a deal or transact in such a way that a satisfactory margin is not produced, one that should cover overheads and provide a sufficient return on investment or working capital. I mean, I reckon they're pretty powerful words because this is a really important area of your business, to know exactly what margins that you're making out of your business. Not only gross margin, but your net margin as well. The last piece in this article, which I think is an interesting thing, and it goes right back to those dogs and the destination, where do you want to get to? Because margins have a direct effect on the bottom line, they also have a powerful effect on the valuation of a business. Shrew says that more than half of the small to medium enterprises will be sold in the next decade, most of them on a multiple of earnings basis. Grant Thornton recently advised to a client to review manufacturing processes and costs ahead of a sale. So their client was wanting to sell their business. This helped cut $1.50, excuse me, this voice is going. This helped cut $1.50 a unit off the production costs. As the business sold 600,000 units a year, its bottom line received a $900,000 boost. But that's not the end game. And I'll explain to you what we did in our particular business. That's not the end game. Sure, their profit went up 900,000. The real bonus, though, came when the business sold for 6 times earnings. The margin focus bolstered its overall value by 5.4 million. So it added its value by 5.4 million just by focusing on those margins and getting the margin right. And I think that anybody in small business today should focus on this destination. And if they want value out of the business, if you want to grow your business and you want value out of your business, it's got to be profitable, and it can be sold, it can be merged on a multiple type basis. So let's look at what margin is a measure of and what markup is not. Margin is a measure of profitability, and markup is not. Markup is a means for us to actually get there. The 4 calculations that I think you really need to look at is how to calculate your required markup, how to determine what markup is on that product. You might have a particular product there and you want to know what market is on it, so there's little formulas for each one of these. And you're probably already doing it and you probably already know the formulas. But what we're doing today is just trying to emphasise that. Because you just can't go and find a product and think we've got a market for it, so let's sell that off and gee, we've made an increase in dollars on it. The biggest problem I find with small business people, that's like everybody sitting here in this audience and me included, and probably Bill included, is that most of us are entrepreneurs. The thrill we get out of the business is the thrill of the kill, the thrill of the chase, doing the deal. And I know I've been guilty of that on many occasions. Gee, if I do this, this is going to result in that. Without really doing the numbers and saying, was it worth doing it after all? And it's not really worth doing it unless you're consistently getting margins out of it, and the correct margin. So it's important to actually look at these calculations continually. Go back to this lady who ran this designer homeware business. She calculates them daily. She would look at every product sitting on those shelves and she would know exactly what the margin was on that particular product. And I'll talk to you about a very easy way of determining that. You want to achieve a required margin. So all businesses sitting here today will all need a different margin. So there's no one margin calculation for all of us. Some of us here today might work out of the boot of a car. I don't think so, looking at you all. Some might work out of their garage. Some might own their offices and their premises and their warehouse. Some might employ 50 people. Some might employ their cousin or their son or their daughter or whatever. And the margins are quite different across the line. But it's important, if you're running a larger business with a large number of people, then your margins have to be there because you've got overheads to cover. If you've got a small business without those overheads, then you should be getting the same sort of margins anyway because it's the only way to grow your business. Discounting is not going to do it. You think you can go and buy that and sell this what's the chap on the camera's name? Gilbert, sorry. You go and buy this for $10 and you sell it to Gilbert for $15 and you think you're going to make some money out of it. Okay, we haven't looked at what our overall overhead costs are going to be to affect that. Now, if you have low overhead costs now, keep the margins up, keep the profitability up. It's the only way to grow the business. If you're scraping through and just earning an income out of it, well, I don't think it's even worth being in business because where are you going to take it to? And my view for everybody sitting in this room is that look at where you want to take your business, and where the big margin is on the sale of the business. And the only way you're going to get that price is if you've got the right profitability all the way through and a track record of it all the way through. It took me until I was probably about 50 to realise, because I enjoyed business and work every day, where do I want to be? And I don't want to be here in 5 years' time. And I had a business, we employed 35 people, Bridgeport Advisors it was called, here in Sydney. Employed 35 people, 2 partners, and we got together with our business plan, and I'll talk to you about this business plan area, and we said, okay, where do we want to be in 5 years? We want to be out of this business. We want to sell it, and we want to not just get the profits on the way through, but we want to get a really good capital value for this business. So what are we going to do? So we worked for 6 or 9 months on corporatising the business, getting our names out of it. I don't want my name in it. I don't want my name splashed around the media. I've had all of that. I've had the glory days of being who you are and what you are. What I want to do now is position the business to find a buyer. So we removed ourselves, we kept the same activities going, but removed ourselves out of the front line, appointed a general manager, and then started to look for a buyer. We looked for 6 or 8 buyers. We thought the only people that really want this business are people in the financial services industry. We focused on 5 or 6 life insurance companies. We got down to 2, we got down to 1, and we took the deal to Zurich Life, and they bought 30% in the first year, and they bought us out over the 5-year period. So at the end of 5 years, we were paid out. They've got the business. What they've done with it isn't real bright, but that's the problem with corporatising and selling to a major. But for us, we achieved the end game. We developed a business that had real value and gave us a real value and a real exit strategy to get out of it. So that's one of the most important things about margin, and it's mentioned here by this accounting firm. Okay, let's look at the first one, calculating your required markup. Let's look at a product. We've gone out, we've found something, and it's $5. Okay? This is a very simple way of calculating that. We have other costs that come into it. So it's not just $5. We might have freight costs and we might have printing costs. So we have a total cost here of the product at $6.68. We want to achieve a 42% markup. Now, we don't often work that way until we know exactly what our business needs. It's not the markup that's going to give us the dollars, it's the margin that's going to give us the dollars. So we've got to actually have done a lot of calculation before this to know what the margin is on our business, what we actually require. But let's say we've worked that through, and we know now that we can put a default system into our calculations so that if we got a 42% markup on our product, then we're going to get the margins that we want at the other end. So the calculation is quite simple. It's 42 on 100 by the total cost, which is this figure up here, plus the total cost. So it's 42 on 100 by $6.68 plus $6.68. The sale price is $9.48. And that gives us a 42% markup. And to me, that doesn't really mean very much because we really don't know what we're making out of that. So let's go to the next one. If we had a product that we saw sitting on the shelves or you sold it for $9.48, the total cost was $6.68 from that other example. $9.48 minus $6.68 on $6.68 is 0.42 by 100 is 42% markup. So it's just working it back the other way. I don't want you to focus on this and start writing this down because it's in the notes, but I've got a that will make this so easy for you. And I'll tell you about that in a minute or so. Let's look at the next one. You want to achieve a 40% margin. The margin is where we're at. This is what we've got to achieve. Okay, our total cost is 1 minus, we've got 40% up here, 0.4. The total cost at $6.68 on 0.6, the sale price is $11.13. And that's given us a 40% margin. Now you're not going to walk around with that little formula in your pocket and look at and doing that calculation every time you see a product. What margin is on that particular product? You have marked it for a $10 sale. The cost was $5. We added on the freight, etc., $1.68. We're leaving off all of the other costs because we're not talking about net profit here. We're talking about margin or gross profit. Okay. What percentage margin did we make? We might have sold something and thought we've done a great deal. But what do we actually make out of it? So this is the calculation to do it. It's the sales price minus the total costs on the sale price by 100 is $10 minus $6.68 divided by 10 by 100. Percentage margin was 33.20. And we've already done that deal and we probably haven't made as much margin out of that as we should. The difficult thing, the important thing, but difficult, is to look at McDonald's and say, all right, they don't just have one product. It's not like the Ford Motor Company selling, not a Commodore, what have they got? Falcons. It's not like the Ford Motor Company selling a Falcon. They got one product, one car, and out it goes. McDonald's got a whole range of products. You, I would imagine, would have a whole range of products. The important thing there is to know across the board what markup you should put on so that your average margins are 42% or 40% or whatever is required in the business to get that margin. Are we still awake? Okay, so we're right. Gee, this is a great stick. Can I keep it in? Okay. A couple of other little calculations before I tell you the very easy way to do this. If you want to increase your sale or to increase your sales needed to compensate for discounting, we've got to be super careful that we don't get into the discounting business. Because if we do, our margins are going to go through the floor. We've got to build relationships, market our products in such a way that your client feels really good about paying the price. And they'll pay the price, that's the market price, if you can sell the product well. And I think that most people in this room, that's where their strengths would be. It's not sitting down, working out margins, etc. So if you reduce your price, let's say you reduced it by 10%, and let's say your margin was 40%. To produce the same profit margin, you've got to increase sales by 33%. Now there's a little chart there that we'll give away that you can get from me, which gives a whole range. So if you reduce your price by 10% or 15 or 20 or 30, it will give you the calculation on the way through. Premium pricing strategy. The present margin is 40%. You increase your prices by 10%. Your sales could decrease by 20% before your gross profit is reduced. So that's a little calculation. If I've got a product here and I think that I could squeeze it up a little bit, what are we going to decrease our sales by? Now, I've said that it's easy to do these calculations, and what I'm not up here doing is selling things to you or selling products to you. But I want to let you know what is available. And I have an involvement, since I've sold my business, I started an organisation called the National Planning Institute. And that is a collection of people, of professional people, lawyers and accountants, of people who come together to produce goods and services and products and presentations, etc., to help small businesses run their business and to help individuals run their own personal financial lives. Because when I talked before about your second business, what is your second business? That's the one that's away from the office. It's away from what you're doing every day. It's where you're pumping the profits out into. It's your family and second wife, husband, second husband, whatever it might be. It's the mix-up of what goes on outside the business. So that's the important thing to do, and that's why we've produced products to do just that. Now, what this product is, there's a whole range of business planning tools that are inexpensive. This one is called Busy Plan, which is business plan, and it's called Busy Plan Margin. And this is the product here. It's a simple CD that you can slip into your computer, and it does the work for you. This is what comes up on the screen. So it's a margin calculator for small business, along with a whole range of other products. So the simple thing that this does, which I think is a fabulous product for people in small business, in your sort of business, you type in your product name, let's call it a Gidget. Let's just say, for example, this is 1 unit. You might have bought 500 units. Your purchase price was $5. Your transport cost, we go back to that $1.68 thing, is $1.68. No miscellaneous costs here. Our unit price is $6.68. The minute that we put that in, we then know, we have then done the exercise and know what the markup is that we should have in our business to give ourselves a required margin. And let's say it's a 60% markup. In this default section, press the button. It's as simple as this. It's one screen. Press the button. The default markup comes up, and we've left it in at 60%. Your calculated sell price is $10.69. So it does it for you. Whether you've got 1,000 products or whatever, you just crank those in and up you come here. But I don't think that that's the way you would actually do business. I think in your business, probably what you would do is you would go and find a product like this, and you would look at it, and with your experience in your business and the market that you know, you'd think, gee, if I got 1,000 of those, I could sell those to XYZ for $10 each. That's what I think I could do. I think that's what the market would stand. So if we work it back the other way and look at what the sell price is, let's just say, and this can't be moved because this is a screen grab, so I can't go over here and start calculating it for you. So it's just a screen grab taken off the program. So the actual sell price here is $11.13, right? That's what I reckon we could sell it at, because we've bought it pretty right. Went to Hong Kong and we bought 1,000 of these, and we bought them in, and I know just the person who will buy it, and I know they'll pay $11.13. So what we do here is we say, all right, we've bought it for this figure. We know what we've paid for it. We know what we can get for it. So we don't worry about what the 60% markup has done and told us what our sell price is. We put in what our sell price is. The minute we put that in there, that will calculate what the gross margin is on that particular product. And you can look at it and say, God, the gross margin's only 10%. We shouldn't go near this product. It won't, not only will it do that, but it'll actually hold the margin dollar as well, so you know how much you make out of it. So you've got the two calculations here. You know what you can buy it at. So then what do? You desperately want this product. You've done this little calculation, and you'll say, my business can't stand a margin of 40%. I was with a company last week, which is a national chain of coffee land. Well, I'll tell you, it's Gloria Jeans, and I do a lot of work for them, and they've actually got one of these programs in. And I was talking to them about this very subject, and we were looking at their cake counter. You know how you go along, you can buy your coffee, you get all those blends, and then you get all these cakes and stuff. Now what they do, they look at this cake in there, and it might be a donut, and they'll say, we reckon the market on this donut can stand $3. That's what we've looked at all our competitors, we've been all over, and we reckon it's as good as all of those, so it'll stand a sale price of $3. So what we do then is we work it backwards. That's what we're going to sell it at. Heck, what have we got to buy that at now? So we go back up here and we do the calculation and we find we can't get our margin out of it. So then what do the big corporates do, or what do? You go back to your supplier and say, look, I'd love to buy 1,000 of those, but I can't make the margin out of it. So you try and get them down on price. So you either get the price down or you move your price up to get your margin. The big trick really is that not every product that you're going to sell will have the same margin on it. There might be some sort of lost leaders coming in there where you might say, gee, we'll get this and we'll flick this off and make a 10% margin on it because I know it's good for my business, be good for my client, but don't get caught in that trap. That's all right as a one-off, but clearly mark it in here. What this little program does, simple, is it actually records all of these previous purchases. So you hit into here, reports, bang, and up comes the screen and it tells you all the products that you've put in there and the margins and markups on every product that you put in there. Simple. Widget, gidget, whatever it is, margin, markup. So then you know. So it gets a bit dangerous if you're buying products and flicking them off to make a really good relationship with a client, let them know that you've done them a great deal. That's okay, providing you know that your margin on the rest of your products is 60%. They're not to know. It's none of their business anyway. So you want to achieve the best margin you can. Yep.
So just quickly, can you set your gross margin and work backwards?
Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah.
You worked out from there that you would end up with a 40% gross margin.
Yeah.
Can you set it at 40%?
Oh, yeah.
And then work backwards?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That could be, you could be working on your margins, that could be the set factor.
Absolutely, the default factor. So it defaults in there at that.
Yeah.
So now that program is $20. Now, I reckon it's a great little program to have in your computer. It runs off its own system, load it in, and it stays. It burns into your computer and it stays on your computer, and that sets your margin and your markup situation forever and a day. How much did we really make, and what is the net figure? How are we going for time? What is the net figure? And this is the important one. The next step is what the net profit is. And how do we actually get to the net? The net profit is a heck of a lot harder, a heck of a lot more difficult than what we've done here, because this is where we've actually got to spend some time. So we had a total cost of $668, we had a sale price of $11.13, our gross profit was this. So what percentage or net profit are we making out of this? Now there's only one way to do this, and that's to get inside your business. And the way you get inside your business is actually start to do some business planning. And if you don't like doing it, then you've got to find someone in your organisation, either your husband, partner, wife, son. Kids are really good at doing this if they're over about 11, because they can press the right buttons. My granddaughter came into she had a sleepover the other night, she's only 4, and she came in and climbed up into bed yesterday morning. She's got her own Naputa, a computer, and it's only this big and it presses all about, I mean, she's 4. And I said, Jasmine, what are you doing? She said, I'm sending an email, Papa. I mean, it wasn't plugged into anything, but there she is. I mean, these are the people that should be doing this sort of stuff for you, while you're out using the expertise that you've actually got in developing your markets and your client base. So it's important to have somebody do the net profit. Okay, how do we actually do this? Now, the easiest way for me to talk around this is to talk around another product by the National Planning Institute, which is a business planning tool, and it's called BusyPlan. And it comes in this pack, and this is the one I was saying that Gloria Jeans have now just taken on. And it's a CD base, and so I've got a number of screen grabs off it, because it's easier to talk about the screen grabs than it is to talk about just how you actually work up a business plan and why you should actually do it. Why write a business plan? I think everybody, whether you use that system It's irrelevant to me, or the back of an envelope. And you sit in the plane on the way home and you sit there and you work through the issues. And it's not hard to do, but it's a discipline to know where you are, where you're going. You go to the bank and try and borrow 100 grand or 50 grand or 200 grand. You try and open a franchise today and walk into the National Australia Bank and say, I want $500,000 to buy this coffee outlet. They say, okay, where's your business plan? Show us the business plan. It's got to be a comprehensive business plan showing that you know, you understand what business you're getting into and how to run your business. You want to expand your business and you want some money, the banks are going to want more details now than they ever have before, because there's a lot of businesses falling over. There's a lot of franchises falling over. It's because they haven't done the homework beforehand. So to get to that figure that we're after, that net profit, let's look at writing a business plan. Why do you write it? Benchmarking is a great way to, these conferences are fantastic because you're all together and you're all talking about the same sort of thing. You all run different businesses, but you're in the same sort of market. So you can almost benchmark about, turnover, etc., overhead costs, how many people have you got in your business. That's what benchmarking is. Just find out what's going on in other businesses. Gee, I didn't think of that. Why didn't I do that? You go to a McDonald's franchisee conference and you'll have them all sitting around here. They're all coming up with different ideas about marketing. They all have different ideas about employing people. McDonald's is a bit different because it is regimented. But you get these up-and-coming companies like Gloria Jeans, who are now expanding at the rate of, well, they're international now, expanding at the rate of 100 new franchisees a year. These people are coming together and they're benchmarking. Okay, financing is important. It's important to write a business plan for staff direction, communication, so that you can communicate with your partner. Write it down. Have it in a format so that everybody knows what you're doing, not just up here. And that's the big mistake. If you look, and I think of my own industry and I think, who are the guys that have been really successful in our business? Who are the guys that have been excellent at what they do but never built their businesses up there? I had a personal friend of mine, Paul Terry, who ran a business called the Paul Terry Corporation. He was in superannuation, funds management, this sort of area. And he decided, and he was a stickler for business planning. He wanted his staff to know exactly what was going on in the business. He wanted his bankers to know what was going in the business. Everything was detailed, everything was written down. And I had lunch with him one day and I said, why are you changing the name of your business? He changed it from the Paul Terry Company, Paul Terry Organisation, to Monitor Money. He said, because I want to corporatise it, I want to get myself out of the business and I want to sell it on. Well, he did. He sold Monitor Money 15 years ago to Capita, the life insurance company, for $40 million. He had a passion for flying. Great friend of mine, Paul, and he went to the US because he wanted to fast-track his helicopter licence. Wanted to get it in 6 weeks, and in the second week he did his first solo and the helicopter tipped upside down. Unfortunately, Paul was killed. And that was a real tragedy because everything he'd worked for is actually gone. But my point here is that he was extremely successful in his business. And I'm sure if I look around here, there will be extremely successful people who run proper business plans and are building their business so that everyone knows what they're doing. And there are others that are happy to run along and operate out of a garage. And it's where your head wants to be. But if you want to build it, do it properly. So you need a business plan for cash flow, business projections, for business valuations, succession planning, and responding to change. If we look at this busy plan, what have we got? 15 minutes. Is that our timing? 15 minutes. Is 15 minutes too long or enough, or we keep going? Okay. What's that? Oh, okay. Okay. So let's just say we decided not to do it on the back of an envelope or on the back of the Qantas magazine on the way home, and we were going to do it properly and sensibly, and we used something like this system here. I haven't seen a better one than BusyPlan, but there are a few systems around. It's an inexpensive program. What we've decided to do with that is to make it so easy to use that it's not mumbo jumbo and it's not Americanized. So let's look at how you write a business plan for yourself, for your bankers, for your staff, so that you understand where you're going, so that we can get to that bottom line, that net profit. The screens come up, there are a number of sections. The first section is all about writing your own plan, which is the written sort of stuff, which is the stuff that banks really love to see. They do two things. If you've ever taken a business plan to your bank manager, he'll look at the front, he'll look at the executive summary, this one, and he'll flick right to the back page. What the hell are we going to make out of this? How much do you want? I want $500,000. Okay. He'll look at two things. He wants to know what the executive summary, what do you know about the business? So what you do in this, you bring the first screen up, you want to write a business plan, you hit the button, executive summary comes up, and you can type in what your executive summary is, and there's a help page which tells you all about an executive summary. An executive summary is a written document in about 200 words as to what the hell your business is all about. If you got in a lift on the 10th floor and I got in next to you and I said to you, tell me all about your business before we hit the bottom. Before we get to the ground. Okay, that's an executive summary. This is my business. I employ so many people. My market is this. I turn over this. I make this much money. And I've borrowed this much money. And my wife hates the amount of time I spend in the business. That's an executive summary. Very quick analysis of where you're at. A vision statement is where you want to be. And so we wrote one of these down. We had it in our own office of where we want our business to be. It's a vision. Where do we want to take it? It can be 3 lines. McDonald's everybody's got a vision statement. A mission statement, so you type this in, hit the button, type it in. A mission statement is how the hell am I going to get there? And that might be a couple of pages. I'm going to employ this number of people. I'm going to go out and find new markets. I'm going to cut my costs. I'm going to buy my own real estate. That's what you should do. Go and buy a factory and set yourself up in it. There's a goal-setting part of the program. There's a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. What this program does, it wakes you up and think, gee, I better do some of these things. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We've all heard about it, but here in the program, square section come up. What are my strengths? And it's interesting when you start writing them down, sometimes you're a blank. Hell, what the hell are my strengths? So you write in your strengths. What are the weaknesses? You write in your weaknesses. How am I going to get over those? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? So it's an analysis. Then we write a marketing plan. You hit the button here, a calendar comes up and it tells you what you're going to do month by month, and you stick to it and you print it out on the print section, wherever it is. Oh, it's on the reports. You print it out and you have your staff know what marketing you're going to do, who's going to do it, when are you going to do it, right? And then benchmarking again is you sit down and you look at, you've picked up all the ideas from all these people here. You've overheard 10 conversations. Usually the women are the best at this. They can hear 10 conversations going on and they can focus on every one of them. And so you can write all of that information down. So when you go away, you've benchmarked. You know what everybody else is doing, and that's where you want to be. If we step from the business planner to the financial planner, this is where we actually finish up. And this is the important thing to get us down to the net profit situation. So what we do here, we go into categories and forecasts. So we're going to do a forecast here, and we're going to do an actual forecast and transactions. Hit that button there, a screen comes up, you enter in what you think your sales are going to be for the month. Okay? It comes up on the screen, month, 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 month. So that's your forecast. You then start entering in your cost of sales. What were the costs? Oh, that gets back to that figure we talked about, the $6.68. What were the cost of those particular sales? What are our marketing costs, external costs, things outside of our control? What are our loan repayments, our repairs and maintenance, our rent, utilities, office expenses, leasing, outgoings, miscellaneous, sales fees, payroll, depreciation? It all sits there right in front of us. Gee, we forgot about that. I was talking to someone about their business plan once. They'd gone right through it, hadn't put rent in. That was a reasonable sort of factor. Gee, we're going to do pretty well out of this. They hadn't put rent in because this jumps out at you. So you can understand. So that's what you do when you're actually doing a business plan. You're forecasting out in front. As each month goes by, this line here, when you hit transactions, moves to there. So what happens then is that you then sit down or have someone sit down and enter in exactly what did happen on that particular month. So you do a business plan starting in September. So you think, gee, I'm going to do this, my costs are going to be this, and gee, it really does focus you on where the money goes, and that's when you get back to this net profit. Then at the end of September, you have someone sit down, what were my sales? And this program will tell you what you estimated, what they really were, print out a report, and the difference is this, right? And so all of those expenses are exactly the same. Then when you come to reports, what the program will actually do then will print out a whole range of categories, both in the estimated, forecasted side and in the actuals. So it'll give us category figures as to where we were, what categories of profitability. It'll tell us what our cash flow is, just printed out. It'll give us a P&L, so we know what the profit. You can take all of this then to your accountant and say, I don't want to spend 2 or 5 grand or 10 grand with my accountant next year. It's all here, because I've done this sitting up in bed with my laptop, just cranked it in. This is the shape of our business. This is not an accounting package, but what this is a planning package, so you can determine then what you should be selling your product at. If we look, and these are just typical screen grabs of what will come up. This is a forecast. You hit the other button, it'll be actuals. It will then give you sales, etc. It'll give you your figures. It'll tell you exactly what your profitability is, and I'll just run through them. It'll give us a cash flow report. And as I'm saying, don't buy this. You don't want to buy this, but do it. Just do it somehow, and don't have your accountant necessarily involved in it, because it's not that difficult to do. Whether you just get an exercise book and start to do it so that you understand where you are. This will give you a P&Ls, it'll give you a forecast here against actuals in different colours, months of the year. It gives you expenses. So everything that it will actually give you, it'll give you a forecast expense and an actual expense of all of these costs that we talked about here, repairs and sales, etc. So what we really need to do, if you don't do it this way, you do it on the back of an envelope, is a P&L report, a cash flow report, a general ledger, expenses report, category report, and a summary report. And it's easy for you to do it, regardless of how small or how big your business is. Don't wait till the end of the year. Have everything together in a shoebox and then try and whiz it off to your account, because you really don't know where you are. And if you've done this, even if you've done it and you've sat down and you've done it for 1 month, you're going to get a real good idea what your overhead costs are. And it can be plus, yep.
Can you import this to Mile or Word?
No, we didn't want to do that, because for us, MYOB is a great tool for seriously doing your accounting. This is a business planning situation. It can be downloaded in, like a couple of major companies that have actually integrated it into their system. So then it goes out as a business. It's purely a very easy to use business planning tool. So some of the things in there you might already be just getting out of MYOB anyway. So, all right. And then of course, the other part of this, yep. I'm sorry?
Can you limit access to certain parts of the planning program?
No, you want someone to do it, and you don't want to give them all the information. Yeah, you don't want someone else to have all the information. Yeah, no, we haven't. No, the answer's no on that. But I suppose it's something that's worth thinking about. We've done it on another program, which is a personal one, where your husband, wife, or partner can't see what the real income is, or what the real credit card expenses are. So you eliminate credit card expenses for your wife or husband. Last part of it, this is what you should aim for, is your break even. How much do we need to turn over on those margins? How much do we need to turn over before we start making money for ourselves? It calculates it straight out. Business valuation, it's the same thing as I talked about before. Know what the multiples are in your industry and work out your business valuation on profitability. A debt to equity analysis, you should always know exactly where you are with your borrowings as against the equity in your business. And that's the business value. Succession planning, I won't spend, we could go a half a day on that. And estate planning is exactly the same. It's part of your business plan, but I don't think we'll need to do that. When I talked about controlling your family interests, this is the mess that I see so often in businesses. It's not the business that you're running every day, it's the effect that all of these other things, husbands, ex-husbands, estates, houses, testamentary trusts, have on your business. So get some good advice and try and tidy that up so that you know exactly where you're going. Planet is the personal planner. I'll actually finish off here on getting the most out of your people, and I think that this is really important. In America, they seem to be able to do this. There's a new system where they can actually get the best out of your people, and I'll just show you how they actually...
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Hey, bud.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard. That ain't new, baby.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice.
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
You can't hide, baby.
He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug.
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
You want to play games, Gene? Well, when it's game time, it's pay time, baby. Woo!
Just to finish off, when we talk about managing money, and that really is a whole another part of the presentation. Remember that there are people with money and that there are people who are rich, and I think we can quite often spend so much time running our businesses and forget that what really money can do to us and what it can't do for us, and determine how we can be rich out of these businesses. I hope that is some use to you. I'd like to spend some more time, and but if you want to have a chat to me afterwards, that's fine. Thanks very much for your time.
Can you turn these on? Hello? Hello? Daryl, I need you to just stand over here for a second. I need you to say a few words. Can you just say the word local supplier?
Local supplier.
Okay, that's great. And can you also say the word promotional product?
Promotional product.
Great. So we can go back and actually edit the part where he says buy from Hong Kong
Oh.
to local supplier, and we're able to actually replace the widget with actually promotional product. So thank you for
okay.
that. I
I'm
just
sorry
wanted to
about
make
that.
sure that we actually had that corrected.